Hey everyone, I am Calf. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I'm going to be talking about Days Gone because I finally decided to sit down and beat the main story as well as do a bunch of the endgame slash side content. Before we get into it, here's my obligatory like and subscribe pitch. Alright, let's get into it. Days Gone was released on April 26, 2019, exclusively on the PlayStation 4, and then a couple of years later, it was released on May 18, 2021 on PC. It was released to mixed reviews from critics and positive reception from players. From what I understand, it was released in a pretty buggy state, and that's why its overall reception suffered. And to kind of personally address that, they haven't fixed all the bugs, but it is in a very, very good state. There's nothing game breaking or anything like that. And just to let you guys know, this review is going to be spoiler free. All the gameplay you see is going to be from the end game, so nothing from the story. This game is really hard for me to review or even recommend to people. I initially started playing Days Gone over 6 months ago. I had to force myself to get past the first 5-ish hours of the game because I just didn't care about the story and characters, and even the gameplay wasn't satisfying enough to hook me. Honestly, the game at its core, when you first start playing it, its first impressions to me, it was like it's just another zombie game. I only really stuck with it because of what I was told about the game from Reddit threads and other people, so I decided to power through it. After I got over that massive hump of a first act, I couldn't put the game down. I was playing it for a few hours a night for a couple of weeks, and then I decided to take a break because I get bored with games really easily. It's nothing against the game, it's just me. And then within these last couple of weeks, I decided to finish it up. Once the map opens up and you actually start learning about the world and characters, the game becomes super compelling. When you start getting better guns and unlocking skills, the gameplay becomes a lot less of a chore and much more satisfying. It just takes a very long time to get to that point. But even after getting past that slow opening, the game still has its issues, a lot of which aren't really a big deal, mainly because they don't affect the story or gameplay. The main thing I noticed was the overall lack of polish when it came to the open world NPCs. It's weird because the main story cutscenes are very well animated and acted, and then when you have interactions with NPCs in the open world, it's like you're playing an older PS3 game. I'm not joking. Voice acting is hilariously bad, and so is the lip sync animation. The interactions that you have with NPCs are super awkward. It almost makes you think like you're playing two different games. On one hand, the actual open world of Oregon is gorgeous. The world building is pretty solid as it's told through picking up Nero recorders and telling the actual background and research of the Freakers. The Freakers themselves, they have good AI and they actually pose a threat. And then on the flip side, you have the human enemy AI, which has to be some of the dumbest AI I've encountered in a video game. I don't know if it's because I was playing on the normal difficulty, but facing humans was trivial compared to facing Freakers. Honestly, some of the worst content in this game is all the side stuff that is involving humans, like clearing out ambush camps and martyr camps. It just feels kind of like, it feels like a chore because it's like, okay, I literally can just walk through this stuff. There's other stupid stuff I could complain about, like some annoying bugs and some other stuff, but I would rather tell you about what makes this game special. So after you power through the first part of the game, the map opens up. You unlock new camps to do jobs for, which means new characters you get to know. Some obviously are better than others, but the game manages to put together a story where you actually care about what happens to these characters. It's crazy because in the beginning you know nothing about Deacon and Boozer, and then you continue to know nothing after hours of playing through the story. And then finally they get into their backstories and their relationships, and that's at least when I got invested into the game. It's just too bad it takes so long to do it because I could see a ton of people quitting the game after playing for a few hours, because the first few hours are pretty much a generic zombie survival game that honestly doesn't do survival very well. After you start unlocking better guns and leveling up, the game becomes a lot of fun, and there's a pretty solid variety of missions. I really like how the majority of some missions are just spent riding and listening to the characters having a meaningful conversation. The main thing Days Gone does really well is pacing. After something crazy happens, after some, big story, big event, typically there's a decent amount of cooldown time for our characters to just do expositional character building things, and that's where the story of Days Gone is at its best. Now, I am not saying that in any way that after the first few hours, this game has like a perfect story. There are some really questionable things that they did, and I can't really talk about that with going into spoilers, but there's some things that you're just like, why would they write it that way? If they would have just did it like, flip some things around, it would have made a lot more sense, or it would have just like, it would have hit the player a little bit harder. Now, when we're talking about gameplay, it's solid fun, but it's nothing revolutionary. Honestly, the game does action better than it does like survival and survival horror, because once you get to a certain point, you have plenty of ammo to wipe out pretty much anything. In the beginning of the game, it really pushes you to conserve ammo and like scrounge around and scavenge for stuff. And then once you get to a certain point, it just becomes full on like you have hundreds of bullets and you have no issue with finding ammo, and it pretty much turns into an action game, which is fine. I think that's what it does better than the whole survival aspect. The best thing about Days Gone gameplay though are the hordes. Hordes are groups of hundreds, yes, I said hundreds of freakers that you have to wipe out solo. They are challenging, hectic, and they get your adrenaline pumping. Hordes are the reason why you stick around after the credits roll. The biggest issue I have with the hordes though is that it takes way too long to unlock them, and they are easily the best part of the game. And the cool thing is that too is like every horde is different in size, and especially with the parts of the map they place them on, it makes every horde encounter different. One last thing I would like to quickly talk about is how they managed to make the motorcycle not an annoying part of the gameplay loop. Basically, you have to keep an eye on your motorcycle's fuel level and health. Now you can see how this could be a tedious mess, but they made it so it was easy to get fuel, easy to get scrap to repair your bike, and the upgrade path was very well paced. The motorcycle almost feels like it has its own character almost. Like as you level it up, your quality of life in the game is easier. It doesn't damage as much. You can upgrade your fuel tank and all that. And they don't make it super difficult at all to buy upgrades for your motorcycle. One of the big things is that fast traveling requires fuel. So I think implementing these mechanics made it so players would have to think before they fast traveled, therefore causing players to spend more time actually exploring the open world, which the open world I thought was pretty awesome. That's one of the main things that this game does right, is that it's gorgeous. There's like a variety of environments. Like there's kind of like biomes almost, but not really. I think that's all I really have to say about Days Gone. Basically, if you plan on giving this game a shot, be patient with it. It starts out as an extremely average game, but after a few hours it turns into something special. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you have anything else to add or have any questions, please don't hesitate to throw them in the comments below. I try to make it a point to reply to everyone. All right, I'm done talking. I'll see you guys later.